Jim Francis, and welcome back to Sales Code. In this session, we're going to talk about the 4 types of people in the world, and if we understand the 4 types of people in the world, what their primary motivation is, then we can sell to them more effectively. And let me suggest to you that this one technique by itself that literally could double your results in the next 30 days if you apply it. What I mean by that is if you can take the language patterns I'm going to give you, the understanding, the skill set, the knowledge, and apply it over the next 30 days, it can profoundly affect your sales in terms of closing. So part of this program is understanding, but the major part about this program is application. So we want to apply some of the strategies. In fact, the books kind of work hand in hand. In fact, you can learn information from the sales book, and then what I want you to do is to kind of stick it into your 30-day plan for success. So I want you to use that 30-day plan as an application guide to take this information and apply it in your life. When I think about personality styles and the 4 types of people out there, I'm reminded of something that Jung said. The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact between 2 chemical substances. If there's any kind of reaction, both are transformed. Now, obviously, in a sales situation, what we're trying to do is to transform that person from a non-buyer to a buyer. From inaction to action, from being passive to wanting to buy our product, in fact, buy all of our products and maybe come back again. To do that, we've got to appeal to them in terms of their personal motivation. It's not enough to, sell through logic. We've got to really understand who that other individual is, what motivates them, what entices them, what really gets them fired up or excited to buy a product and or service. And I want to do that in this session. So we're going to talk about the 4 personality styles, and I've coded them a little bit different than other folks out there. Just based on my own personal experience, having been out there as a salesperson for a decade, but also training in terms of a decade as well. This material, I've made it pretty simple for people to understand. In fact, if you can kind of figure out 2 characteristics of an individual, you'll have a hint as to what their style is. And if you understand their style, you'll understand what their number 1 primary motivation is, and also understand a little bit of what their objection is and how to deal with that objection. And as I said, this stuff has kind of been around for generations. In fact, the Chinese culture had the 4 styles, social styles, in their materials, long before other people kind of found it. One of the pioneers with respect to this material is a guy named Dr. David Merrill. And Merrill over 30 years ago kind of figured out what the 4 social styles are, and kind of figured how you could code people pretty quickly to figure out what style they were, and that would give them some hints and some ideas in terms of who they are. Wilson Learning Systems, kind of took it a step further, turned it into what they called PSS3, or Xerox Learning Systems, turned it into a sales training program, that showed people how to sell and sell effectively. What I've done is taken that experience and that information and taken it a couple of steps further. What I mean by a couple of steps further, it's nice to understand it, but it's better to apply it. So in your workbooks and your materials, you'll find all kinds of language patterns that you can use for these 4 personality styles. You'll find closing stories and techniques that are directed specifically for a certain style or a certain type of individual. You'll also find that I've taken it a step further and taken a lot of my NLP training, because I am a certified NLP trainer, from Richard Bandler directly, and taken that information and applied it, as tools that we can use in terms of understanding people and how they think, how they process information, and more importantly, how to sell to them using that information. Now, the way I've kind of coded it is I've kind of coded it into a card system. What I mean by a card system is I use the common 52 cards, in the suits to represent different types of people. So I basically say there's 4 types of people in the world. There's a spade personality, a club personality, a heart personality, and a diamond personality. And I take it one step further and say, hey, it's not enough just to understand, who they are and what they're about, but let's also understand, what motivates them, but also what their objections are. What's the major objection for the heart personality? What's the major objection for the diamond personality? What are language patterns we can use with each one of those individuals that will influence them in a major way? Think about it. There are certain people, that if you try to tell them what to do, they're not going to listen to you. I mean, certainly that's the case with a spade personality, and there are other people that you have to tell them what to do. So my card system is driven to kind of take a look at each of the 4 personality styles and then give you some tools and some hints and some ideas of how to sell to them and sell to them effectively. It's also in my sales code material, so I encourage you to read the workbook, because pages 81, 82, 83, 84, 85 are all about those personality styles, and they go into each of the strengths and weaknesses of each of the individuals, also some language we can use to sell to them and sell to them effectively. So you want to make sure that you're following through that. And as I said, there are 4 basic types of people. Now, the way I'm going to ask you to do this is to kind of track with me a little bit, to understand it and apply it in terms of our selling. So I'm going to ask you to do one of 2 things. The first is you can turn into your sales code initial book, and in about page 81, 82, somewhere in that range, you're going to find that there's a little chart there or a graph there that has a big X in the center. So either write this into that workbook immediately, or if you want to, and you want to wreck your workbook, grab a blank page, and on that blank page draw a line down the center and also a line horizontally. And what we'll do is we'll take a look at these 4 types of people, the spade personality, club personality, the heart personality, the diamond personality, and what each of their characteristics are, and also what their motivation is. So on the workbook, what I'm going to ask you to do is to draw a line down the center of the page there, or follow along. And at the top, I'm going to ask you to write internal reference, and at the bottom, I'm going to ask you to write external reference. You do this on page 81 or a separate page, doesn't matter to me. I'm also going to ask you to draw a horizontal line, and when you draw that horizontal line, it's going to represent a second characteristic, which is slow-paced and fast-paced. Now, based on that, those 2 characteristics, whether an individual is internal referenced or external referenced, or whether they're slow-paced or whether they're fast-paced, kind of breaks them into 4 quadrants. And if we understand what the 4 quadrants are, we kind of know what motivates them. Now, what I mean by that is internal reference would be something like, the only opinion that matters is my opinion. And we certainly come across people like that in our selling profession. We also find other people, where they're very interested what other people are thinking. They're externally referenced. What I mean by that is social proof, testimonials, statistical information, those kinds of things help a little bit in terms of making a decision. We also come across folks that are very fast-paced or very slow-paced. What I mean by that is that, they make decisions quickly or they make decisions slowly. Based on these 2 characteristics, which we pretty much can see and listen to when we're with people, we can figure out what style people are, and then if we know what style they are, we literally don't know what motivates them. The people at the bottom that are a little more externally referenced, that means that they value other people's opinions more than their own in many cases. We call them the heart personality or the diamond personality. I also want you to note the color red. What I mean by that is, they show a lot of emotion, or they're very friendly and show emotion, to other people very quickly. The people that are a little more internal referenced, they're a little more black and white, and what I mean by that is, they tend to be controlled. They don't show as much emotion. And they're also internally referenced, meaning the opinion that really matters is their own. So we have to appeal to that. You have to make sure that we're appealing to that type of individual. So what we end up with is, the 4 quadrants. So what I'm going to do is talk about each one of these social styles, give you some characteristics of each of the styles, give you their primary motivation, and talk a little bit about how we sell to this individual effectively. So let's start off with that spade personality. That spade personality has an internal reference point. They're also very fast-paced. Now, that internal reference point is an important part of the equation. You see, it doesn't matter. You can talk to them all day long, and they don't care. What matters is that they come up with the decision. They make the decision. Their opinion is more important than your opinion. So you have to realize that from the get-go. Once you've kind of figured out that this personality is that type, then what we have to do is to change our approach to appeal to their style. So if I'm talking to this individual, what I might say is, hey, I can't make the decision for you. All I can do is bring you the information so that you can, decide whether A is better for you or B is better for you. And we want to do that pretty quickly, because we don't want to waste time. Because that's the other part of the equation. The other part to that equation is they're very fast-paced. They want to get to the bottom line quickly because they value time. Time is a commodity, and they don't want to waste any of it. So with this individual, if you think about their characteristics, they're very fast-paced, they're quick to make decisions, they get to the point pretty quick, they want to control the situation, so quite often they'll say, this is what's important to me, this is what I need, this is what I'm doing, and if you don't listen to them and you just go into your pitch, you're going to have a big problem. You know, they're bottom line driven. They don't value the time or relationships. You know, for them, what's important is the result, not necessarily becoming your best friend. You know, time's value to them. You know, you got to respect that time element. That's the key thing for them is the timepiece. You know, so you've got to get to the point quick. You know, in fact, you know, bold statements, quick statements, a technique I call the Bell technique, which we'll talk about later in another piece, you know, are important. Big claim, you know, exciting claim, you know, and then link it to your product and loop it back to your product, right? So we've got to make sure we've got that big claim, that something that's going to excite them, get them turned on in terms of a result, and get to the point really quickly, but they have to make the decision. You know, they're often driven by success. You know, they enjoy options. They enjoy the result. Now, what motivates this person more than anything else is really they love to win. You know, it's not about the achievement. It's not about the, you know, the toys, the whatever it might be. It's about winning. Now, there's two parts to winning. There's winning, you know, and losing, right? You know, when I say that, you know, but Myers-Briggs proved a long time ago, you know, that people will do much more not to lose something than to win something. They'll do much more to avoid something than to gain something. In fact, the statistics kind of indicate it's about 68 to 32%. Now, when I heard that, I found it kind of unreal because I'm a real positive guy, you know, but it's true. My experience has shown that you have to point out to people what they'll lose in the deal, what they'll lose in the sale. Otherwise, they won't take action, even if they see the win in it. So what that means is in our sales script, in our language, we have to point out the negative as well as the positive as we're going through things. So you want to make sure that you're pointing out 2 times the negative as the positive. You know, that kind of goes against the grain for most positive salespeople, but it's an important part of the equation. In fact, I spent time with Jay Abraham, you know, and Jay Abraham is one of the best marketers that's out there. And one of the major things I learned in terms of, you know, techniques was when you're writing, write to the negative. You know, point out what people will lose as well as what they're going to gain in the situation. So we want to do that in terms of the sales presentation. Now, if I'm talking to this individual in terms of trying to influence them, you know, I'm going to talk about, hey, listen, I can't make this decision for you. You're the only person who can make this decision. You know, but I've noticed that there's really option A or option B. You know, and I really don't want to waste your time. I want to get to the point pretty quick. And if you're going to do it, great. If you're not, that's fine too. You know, and what I'm doing is appealing to their style, right? Then you've got to make sure you change your language and script your language to appeal to that style. Let's take a look at that club personality, a little more internal frame of reference and a little slower paced. Now, the club, the 3 elements, if you see those 3 circles, is kind of a hint. You know, what I mean by that is they need multiple reference points. They need multiple proof. It's not enough that one person says it's okay. What they need is multiple testimonials. They need multiple statistics, multiple reports, multiple information. They're very methodical, very slow-paced. They take their time. They want all of the I's dotted and T's crossed, you know, and they want to make the decision. Now, it may seem at first, you know, that they have a lot of external reference points because they're always asking for information or asking for testimonials, whatever it is, but it's not. You know, what they're doing is they're going to make the decision based on their process, but they want that information so that they can make the decision. So they really do have an internal frame, although they have a lot of information needs in terms of statistics and data and reports and information prior to making that decision. You know, their characteristics, common characteristics, are slow-paced, methodical in terms of decision-making. They need a lot of proof, whether that's data, statistics, trending analysis, you know, whatever that might be. They're very controlling in terms of the process. You know, they're numbers-driven. They like multiple validations, so it's not enough just to hear it from one person. They want to hear it from multiple people, which can be part of your presentation when you're doing that. Make sure that, you know, someone else validates what you've said. You've got to be accurate. Whatever you do, don't make fluff numbers. You know, you don't want to impress them with, you know, something that's made up. Make sure the statistics, the numbers are accurate, and you have because they're going to ask you. They're going to say, "Hey, listen, where'd you come up with that?" You know, and you want to make sure that you take the time with them to be correct. So make sure you get all the data. In fact, data and follow up with them is an important part of the sale. So you want to make sure you get them whatever they need as quickly as they need it. You know, their number 1 motivation is to be right. You know, they've got to be right in the process, and they don't want to be wrong. So that really means, you know, we've got to provide them the right information and use our language to affect them that way. You know, for example, if I was dealing with this individual in terms of a house, and they were selling a house and I was buying a house, you know, what I might say to them is, if they're selling it for $200 and I want to make it for $180, is I might say, hey, listen, I did an inspection report, and there's $10,000 worth of repairs here, that have to be done prior to the house, being bought or sold, which really means that the price needs to be dropped. And you can clearly see from these comparables that I did, or this BPO that I did, that value of the houses in here is averaging about 190, not 200. And they're going to argue about the numbers, but they're going to fall in line with the process. What I mean by that is, they value that kind of insight and information. So you'll want to make sure you're using that insight and information to influence them, whether that's negotiate with them or whether that's to sell to them effectively. In terms of selling, obviously we want to have props, tools ready for this type of individual. They're going to look for the data. They're going to look for the statistics. Not everybody wants that, but for that individual, we want to make sure we've got that information available to them. Next individual is a heart personality. They're very slow paced. They're very methodical. They take their time. They have an external reference point, which means they really value other people's opinions. They like the relationship with other people. So we want to make sure we appeal to this individual. In fact, if you take a look at the characteristics of this individual, they're very slow paced, they want to make friends, they like to take their time. If you can build the relationship, spend 20 minutes building the relationships, if they like you, they'll buy from you. And they like the emotion, the friendship feeling, of being part of the team. They like the social proof, they're very slow to make the decisions, and they really need to be told what to do. So that external reference points, whether that's testimonials or other credibility pieces outside, are important. But you also need to tell them what to do. Hey, listen, this is exactly for you, and you want to do it. You'll also want to make sure that you make support, service, being with them as part of the process. For example, you might have a coaching program or a 24-hour service program. And that 24-hour service program, that coaching program, is going to be the difference between success and failure with these people. Because they like somebody to walk down the path with them hand in hand rather than trying to figure it out themselves. So the number one motivation for this person is they want to be loved and not hated. So they like the relationship. They want to have a relationship where they're liked. And they don't want to be, they don't like the hatred side of the fence. So you want to focus on building the relationship with this individual first before you get into selling. The diamond personality, very fast-paced individual, very, very externally reference points. And what I mean by that is they like to have a reference point that is outside, meaning that they want to be involved with others. This person is very fast-paced, very quick. They have great characteristics. They make decisions quickly. They enjoy the process. They show a lot of emotion. They like fun and adventure. They're really recognition-driven. What I mean by that is they like being the star. They like being in front of the crowd. They like having the accolades. So anytime you can make them the star in their business, anytime you can put them in front of other people and get rewarded, that's a great thing. They also buy into visions pretty well. So you got to paint the picture for this individual in terms of, what might happen. If I was negotiating this individual in terms of a real estate deal, and they were making money in the process, I might say, what are you going to do with the money? When you get that $50,000, you're going to take a vacation. Maybe you're going to go to Hawaii. And when you're going to Hawaii, there's nothing better than sitting on the sandy beaches of Hawaii. Those black beaches are gorgeous. And maybe it's sunset and you're having a glass of champagne with that special loved one, and you never know where that might lead. That to them is going to sell it, as opposed to all the logical reasons. And you've got to buy into the vision with them, or let them buy into the vision with you. Their number one value is to have fun. They hate being apathetic. So the worst thing for this individual is bringing out the statistics. If you bring out the statistics, boom, they're gone. And unfortunately for most salespeople, what happens is we get locked into a style. And quite often that style is our style. So if we're a driver or, spade personality, what happens is, we fall into the trap of, selling in our style. So we do really well with the drivers. We do really well with the drivers, but the heart personality, the other opposite to us from a spade personality, that the heart personality, they freak out on us because, we're moving too fast for them. We're getting to the decision. We haven't built the relationship. The same is true with the club personality and the diamond personality. The club personality likes statistics, likes information. The diamond personality likes fun and adventure. Well, you meet the two of those together and boom, they don't mix. It's oil and vinegar. So one of the things we've got to do as professional salespeople is to get really good at being versatile, about changing our style, to match their style. Let me just give you a couple of examples. Let's say that I'm selling to the spade personality. Very fast-paced, quick to make decisions, likes internal reference points. I might say things to them like, if you sign this agreement, you'll be head and shoulders above the rest of the group. Obviously this is a product for the elite like you. I can't make the decision for you. You have to make that decision. All I can do is to bring you this information of A and B, and if you make this decision, we can get on the path to success quickly, respecting that time element. And I also want to point out the negative, guys. Those are all real positive things to say. I might say something like, if you don't sign this order, you're going to be the only one that hasn't. Everybody else that's in your business has done this. You don't want to miss out on this opportunity and this great deal. Others are going to get ahead of you if you don't buy this product or service. On the club personality, in terms of talking to this individual, I'm going to make sure I respect the fact that they need statistics and information to make the decision. So I'm going to have those trending reports and analysis and data and social proof statements ready for them. And I'm going to say things to them positively like, hey, listen, you want to make the right decision here. You want to sign this order because it's perfect for you. Notice I'm using language that really appeals to that individual. In fact, one of the things I would do in terms of applying this in terms of, the 30-day plan is, if you go to day 1 of the 30-day plan, it's all about language. And there's language in there that's really appropriate for the analytical or the club type of individual. Hard evidence, for example, is a great piece for that. Guaranteed, proven results. And in fact, if you look in your workbook, you're also going to find some language by each of the personality styles, which I would encourage you to copy and to use and throw into your 30-day plan. We also, with the club personality, want to use negative language as well. So it's not just important to say, hey, listen, you're making the right choice. But we want to make sure you don't make the wrong choice. You don't want others to think that you made a mistake. Not signing this order could be a mistake of a lifetime. That kind of language is going to resonate with that club individual, so we want to make sure we get comfortable with some of those kinds of statements. The heart personality, the guy or girl who's looking for the relationship, you can say those kinds of things. Hey, listen, let's cement our relationship by signing this order. I've really enjoyed working with you. You're the kind of person that I think could become a friend. In fact, once we get this order out of this way, why don't we try to see if we can get a golf game done or meet for lunch or whatever that might be. But you're also going to point out the negative. Hey, listen, everyone else has signed this. You haven't. You really want to make sure you're part of the group, right? You certainly don't want this to jeopardize our business or relationship. Those kinds of statements drive a knife into the heart of that individual. So we want to have one or two of those knives ready to kind of wound them a little bit, because selling is about influence. Selling is about creating pressure. Selling is about taking them to the next step, which means not only do we need to make sure we make positive statements, but we also drive some pain statements to get them to take action. Because it really is about sense of urgency, getting them to get off of their little apathetic stool and taking some action. The diamond personality, obviously we're going to say things, hey, listen, signing this deal is going to make you feel great. Can you imagine what you're going to do when we do this? Can you imagine how exciting it's going to be once we get this agreement done and we're on the path? So excitement, fun, those kinds of things. And we also want to point out the negative. Hey, you don't want to miss out on this. If you miss out on this, you'll be sitting there all by yourself. And you don't want to be, sitting there all by yourself doing nothing. So we want to drive home both the positive and the negative with these different types of personality styles. And I'm going to ask you to turn to your workbook and pay, in the 30-day plan, take a look at certainly some of the language pieces, but also start to think about, using social pressures and other pieces with the different types of individuals. For example, with the club personality, we need to have those reports, those statistics, and that information. What do we do if we don't know? What if we don't know, we really don't know? Well, I'm going to say that what you want to do is you want to do the shotgun approach. What you want to do is say, hey, listen, you want to actually buy our product or service because you're going to win the game. And when you win the game, you don't want others to get ahead of you. In fact, you're going to make this decision because it's the right decision, not the wrong decision. And certainly you don't want to make the wrong decision of a lifetime. And we'll be with you every step of the way. In fact, we're going to build a long, loving relationship where we hold your hand and coach you through the program, because you don't want to be out there by yourself out in left field. And certainly, when you do this, you're going to make a ton of money. Your business is going to make a ton of money. What are you going to do with the money? You're going to go to the beach, have that glass of champagne on the beach with someone you love, and you certainly don't want to, be sitting there all by yourself. Now, what I did there was, just arbitrarily, threw out some statements there. But what I did there is to say, hey, listen, we want to hit all four personality styles, and hit those all four personality styles effectively. Now, in this short session, I can't make you a master of the four personality styles, because I give you the concept. You can lead the horse to the water, but now you got to drink. And what I mean by drink is you got to take these concepts and start applying them in terms of your sales process. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to go to page 85, and if you get to page 85, you're going to find some strategies there to apply them in terms of your selling, but you're also going to find the strengths of each of these personalities and the weaknesses of each of these personalities, and also some language patterns that you can use to effectively sell to them a little bit better. So you'll want to make sure you use the kind of personalities. And while you're there, I might ask you also, to drop in and talk a little bit about, what I call communication patterns. In fact, when you're dealing with different types of people, not only are there four personality styles, but each of the personality styles within them use a modality or a submodality to communicate in. Now, what I mean by that is that they actually prefer a type of language, and if you use that type of language effectively, they will listen to you more effectively, because we like people who are like us. So there's something there called modalities or patterns there, and there's basically three types of modalities that people use. The first type of modality is sight or visual. The second type of modality, is really sound or auditory, and the third type of modality is really feeling or the kinesthetic kind of individual. And you can actually hear this when people speak. When people speak, they talk in their modalities. Now, if you can understand what their modalities are, the communication patterns that they like, and you can change your communication patterns to meet their communication patterns, something called matching, what we can do is they're going to be more apt to listen to us. So just, you'll hear the visual type of individual, for example. They'll say things like, hey, show it to me. Can I see it? Can you illustrate it to me? Show me your point. I get the picture. And when you hear those people talking that way, you have to realize that they see everything in terms of pictures. They see everything as a movie or everything as a series of pictures, and we have to match their representation of the world, and change our language pattern to meet their language pattern. The same is true with the auditory type of individual. That in person, quite often you hear them, hey, now that sounds great, man. It rings clear for me. I don't want to miss a beat. And there's actually some visual clues as well in terms of their eyesight and where their eyes go. But for now, just listen to their language. If they're using a lot of those words, it rings clear, sounds good. Then we know that they're a little more auditory, and we have to become a little more auditory. Then the third group, a little more challenging, that is the kinesthetic type of individual. They say things like, I feel the pressure of that decision. It feels good to me. It hasn't touched me in the right way. So we want to use, the same language that they use, and in fact, I'm going to ask you to go in your workbook, your 30-day plan, and take a look, on page 6 in terms of the words that your clients use. And you can see a list of visual words, auditory words, and kinesthetic words. You're going to see that the visual type of person says, can I see that? Makes clear, puts into focus, that it's hazy, I've got a dim view, I can see eye to eye, it's kind of tunnel vision. The auditory individual is going to use it rings clear, sounds good, I'm tongue-tied, it's music to my ears, it's too loud or it's too soft. Kinesthetic individuals kind of use those words like feel, I feel the pressure, point, grasp, a breath of fresh air, washed up, so you'll kind of notice by the words or the predicates that individuals use what style they prefer, and then if you understand what style they prefer, then you just simply change your language to match. Now what that means is you need to kind of pick 3 or 4 or 5 words that are visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, and have them kind of at your beck and command. or change your closing statement or your pitch to use those kinds of words so that it's more palatable to individuals, so that they hear it. And I think that's the greatest gift, by the way, for a professional salesperson. See, quite often what we do is we get locked into our own style, and when we use our own style, people that are our style listen to us, but other people don't. So you want to become more versatile and have some more tools in your tool belt. Change your style. Change your versatility. Change your communication patterns to be more effective with that individual. And in fact, the 4 personality styles are a great beginning with that, but there are others as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about mismatching and some of those things a little bit later on in terms of thinking patterns. But when you think about the 4 personality styles and this kind of information, I wanted to create a tool that helps people, learn this quickly. And I use the card system as kind of this kind of tool. And what I mean by that is, I built 52 cards. They're into 4 categories, or 4 suits. Each of the suits is a personality style. And each of the suits as a personality style, what I did is, hey, what's their number 1 primary motivation? What are the things that hold them back? What are their strengths and weaknesses? And then what are specific language that we can use just with this style to influence them? So what I did is I scripted language patterns, and I took them and put them onto cards. Now, I did this for myself, first of all. So each card, is meant to be carried once a week. So if you think about that, there's 52 cards, there's 52 weeks. So what we do is we carry 1 card a week, and if we carry that 1 card a week, we look at it consistently and see if we're using it, whether it's a language pattern or it's a concept, in terms of our selling. And what it does is it makes you master this material over a period of time. Other than that, we want to drop it into our 30-day plan. Make sure that we put it into our 30-day plan so we execute it and we become a master of the material. So let's make sure we take the next step, which is taking the concept and put it into practical application. By the way, if you're the kind of individual that is selling to groups or on stage, you need to take it 1 step further. What I mean by that is, it's not enough, to be selling one-on-one. When you're selling in groups, you're actually talking to 4 different groups of people. So we need to create, 4 different approaches in terms of our communication patterns and pieces. And that's really my program called Selling from Stage. It's really meant for the group setting, where you're selling to more than just one individual. It doesn't matter whether it's 3, 5, or 500. We need to make sure we take these kinds of concepts and apply them into a group selling kind of piece. And I kind of created 13 commandments, and if you follow those 13 commandments, you certainly can get better in terms of group selling. So if you get a chance, drop by www.sellingfromstage.com, which really takes the sales code material and then puts it into a group setting kind of position. Other than that, we'll want to make sure that we drop into our 30-day plan and start to apply some of these concepts in terms of the next 30 days. This is Jim Francis saying so long for now.